Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere wide, cold, and full of wind. The kind of place where the horizon doesn't end. It just keeps unfolding like a massive beige blanket someone forgot to fold properly. We're traveling back to the Mongol Empire, a world of horses, endurance, and a postal system so efficient it makes modern delivery services look like confused pigeons. You probably wouldn't survive this trip, to be honest. Between the weather that bites through fur coats, the endless emptiness, and the occasional, let's ride 200 miles today attitude, you'd be lucky to make it to lunch without crying into your saddlebag. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is thin here. You can almost taste it, sharp, like cold metal. The grass sways in endless waves, and in the far distance, a faint dust cloud rises. That's not weather. That's a horse, and behind that horse, history is galloping straight at you. You're standing on the Mongolian steppe in the early 13th century, at the edge of something extraordinary. Genghis Khan's empire is growing faster than anyone can comprehend, so vast that messages can't possibly keep up. Armies are conquering continents, but information, that slippery creature, is lagging behind. And so, the Khan invents something revolutionary: the YAM, the world's first large-scale postal relay system. The idea is simple, but brilliant. Every few dozen miles, a station. Each station stocked with fresh horses, food, and a weary but reliable attendant. A rider arrives breathless, leaps off, swaps horses, and vanishes into the horizon before the dust even settles. News from China to Persia in days, not months. It's logistics poetry, horse-powered Wi-Fi. The first thing you notice, though, isn't the speed. It's the silence. Out here, words travel differently. They start as soft murmurs, an imperial decree, a warning, a rumor, and by the time they reach their destination, they carry the weight of survival. The wind doesn't carry nonsense across these plains. It carries purpose. You climb onto your borrowed horse, feeling the stiff leather and the animal's heartbeat pulsing beneath your legs. There's no path, no road, not even a tree to guide you. Just the faint memory of where other hooves once fell. The world hums with motion, invisible and alive. A hawk circles overhead. The sky is absurdly large, like it's daring you to find an edge. You squint, thinking about the riders who once lived this rhythm. People whose entire lives were spent in motion. Some historians say they could cover up to 200 miles in a single day, changing mounts every few hours. Others argue that's exaggerated. Historians still wonder if these couriers truly lived for the empire, or if they were simply swept up by it, caught between orders and open sky. You pass your first YAM station. It's small, built from packed earth and wood. Smoke curls from a chimney, and the smell of horse sweat, dried meat, and old leather hangs in the air. The attendant looks at you briefly, nods once, then disappears back into the dim interior. There's no small talk here. Everyone's tired, and time is currency. A small wooden pole marks the station's edge, fluttering with a strip of faded cloth. It's not decoration, it's communication. In the vast sameness of the steppe, even a scrap of color is a message. This place exists. You are not lost. You take a sip from a skin of arag, fermented mare's milk. It's sour, slightly fizzy, and tastes like someone carbonated yogurt on a dare. You wince, but keep drinking. It's part of the experience, after all. The liquid warms your throat. even if your soul questions your decisions. As the sun dips, the light changes from gold to bronze to something almost blue. Shadows stretch long and lazy across the grass. The horses shuffle, restless, as if sensing the night riders who will soon take over. This system never sleeps. When one rider collapses, another mounts up. When one horse falls, another takes its place. The empire's pulse doesn't falter, it just changes rhythm. And in that continuity, you feel something oddly modern. The same obsession with connection, the same anxiety over delay. You imagine some medieval official pacing in Karakoram, muttering, "Why hasn't my message arrived yet?" Meanwhile, a courier is out here in freezing darkness, coaxing a half-starved pony to keep moving. The stars appear, one by one. There's no light pollution here, just the Milky Way sprawled across the sky like spilled sugar. You think about how each rider must have known these constellations by heart. No compasses, no maps, just instinct and memory. Some say Genghis Khan used these routes not just for communication, but for control. The Yam wasn't just a postal service. It was surveillance, a network of watchers disguised as messengers. Reports flowed both ways. Letters up the chain, rumors down it. No one knew who might be reading over their shoulder. But others insist it was something pure, a marvel of coordination in an age when distance killed empires. Maybe both are true. Maybe that's the point. Power always hides inside practicality. A gust of wind cuts through your coat. The smell of grass, sweat, and distant firewood mixes into something strangely comforting. You pull your scarf higher and keep riding. There's a rhythm to this. Breathe, sway, listen. The hooves drum out a heartbeat older than empires. And just as your eyelids start to grow heavy, you see another station flickering in the distance. A single lamp burning against the endless dark. It's both a destination and a promise. Someone is waiting, somewhere ahead, ready to take the message and carry it farther than you can go. For now, you keep your pace steady. The road, if it can be called that, stretches ahead like a ribbon into forever. You're just a small figure between sky and grass, caught in the ancient pulse of motion, part of a system built to never stop. And as the wind howls softly around you, you realize something. You're not just traveling through space. You're traveling through communication itself, the quiet heartbeat of connection that still hums beneath our world today. The night doesn't end here. It just slides sideways, slowly turning from one shade of darkness to another. The stars fade into a soft silver haze, and the horizon reappears, a thin line of pale light spilling across the grasslands. The air smells faintly of frost and horsehair. You haven't slept, but that's fine. Nobody really does out here. You're still riding, your second horse now, a smaller, faster one. Its breath clouds the air, and its hooves beat out a rhythm that feels almost hypnotic. Each stride pulls you deeper into the old arteries of the Mongol Empire's greatest machine, the Yam, the relay network that never stopped, never rested, and never apologized for being faster than anyone thought possible. They called the couriers, or Tuchi, riders of the stations. Ordinary people chosen for an extraordinary purpose, to keep the empire talking to itself. There were thousands of them, stretched across a continent, moving in silence through mountains, deserts, and endless grass. Some carried official scrolls sealed with the Khan's own mark. Others bore more personal messages, requests, warnings, love letters between commanders and far-off families. And you, somewhere between imagination and memory, have joined them for a day. The sun rises quietly behind you, throwing your shadow long ahead, like a ghost leading the way. You glance down at the small leather satchel tied to your belt. It feels heavier than it looks. Inside, a roll of parchment stamped with red wax, an imperial seal that could change someone's fate. You don't know what it says, and you don't dare to look. The penalty for that, they say, is severe, which, in 13th century Mongol terms, means don't even think about it. You switch hands on the reins, feeling the leather cut into your palm. Your horse snorts, impatient. Somewhere behind you, a falcon cries. Somewhere ahead, there's another station waiting. It's strange to think how such a vast empire depended on people like this. Half-invisible couriers racing through nowhere, carrying messages that could topple kings. Historians still debate just how fast they were. Some records claim they could deliver a message from Karakorum to the Caspian Sea in under a week. Thousands of kilometers through dust and danger. Others say those numbers are too generous. But even if the truth lies somewhere in between, it's still astonishing. What's even stranger, they didn't travel alone. The Mongols built an entire support system around them. Every rider had access to hundreds of fresh horses, waiting at designated posts. In total, the network may have had over 50,000 horses, ready to be swapped in at any hour. Imagine a medieval expressway where every exit came with a refuel, a meal, and a new engine. You feel the exhaustion creeping in, but there's no time to rest. The courier's life was a loop of riding, changing horses, eating something vaguely edible, and riding again. Sleep came in fragments, like broken coins. Some riders were so used to motion that they'd fall asleep in the saddle and wake up miles later, still upright, still galloping. The Mongols had a rule. If a courier failed to deliver a message on time, they'd be punished as if they'd lost an army. The empire's strength depended on this flow of information. A delay could mean disaster. A missed message could mean rebellion. So, the riders learned to live without pause, to exist in the thin space between exhaustion and purpose. You pass a group of riders coming the opposite way. They nod as they thunder by, faces wrapped in scarves, eyes narrowed against the wind. You wonder if they're carrying something as heavy as your letter. Maybe they're just messengers of supply orders. Or maybe they're spies in disguise. The yam was as much a web of intelligence as it was a postal line. Some couriers were chosen for their loyalty, others for their ability to not ask questions. There's a saying whispered among them, old and rough. The horse dies, the message rides. It sounds harsh, but it's practical. The message must go on. Always. At the next station, you dismount and hand over your letter. The new rider takes it with a nod. No words exchanged, and you realize something. In this empire of dust and silence, trust wasn't about knowing people. It was about knowing the system worked. You didn't need to know who carried the message, only that it would arrive. As you drink another mouthful of arag, yes, still terrible, you watch the new rider vanish into the haze. There's beauty in the simplicity of it. Each courier is just one heartbeat in a chain that stretches across the world. Somewhere far off, Genghis Khan sits in his camp, receiving reports that seem to defy time itself. While other rulers waited weeks for word, he had a stream of information flowing in almost daily. Military orders, trade updates, even gossip, all reaching him through this human network of speed and endurance. And because of that, his empire didn't feel distant or fragmented. It felt connected. The yam was the invisible thread that stitched the edges together. Without it, the Mongols would have been a storm that burned out too quickly. With it, they became a system, a strange, living organism with one mind and 1,000 hooves. As you rest by the fire, someone laughs, a low, tired chuckle from another courier. He tells you about the time a falcon snatched a letter out of his hand mid-flight. He had to chase it for hours, cursing the entire avian species. The bird, he says, shaking his head, was faster than me. I respect it. You laugh, too. It feels good to laugh out here, where the wind tries to steal your voice. You realize that despite the fatigue, there's pride in this work. A strange joy in being unseen but essential. When you finally stand to leave, the dawn has thickened into day. The light hits the grass just right, turning it into a field of gold needles. The horses graze quietly, heads down, tails flicking. Everything smells of smoke, sweat, and distance. You mount your next horse and begin again. No one keeps track of how many miles you've gone, or how many more are ahead. The only thing that matters is that the message keeps moving. And as your horse picks up speed, the landscape blurs once more into color and wind. The Empire's pulse beats through you, steady, unrelenting, ancient. Somewhere behind you, another rider wakes up, stretches, and saddles his mount. Somewhere ahead, another station readies a fresh horse. The chain never breaks. You smile into the wind. You may never sleep properly again, but for now, you're part of something vast. Something that moves faster than fear, farther than thought. And the world, impossibly wide as it is, feels just a little smaller. By now, you've been riding for what feels like several lifetimes, or maybe just a few sleepless nights stitched together by dust and adrenaline. The world around you has settled into rhythm. Hoofbeats, wind, silence, repeat. You've started to forget what stillness feels like. But somewhere in the blur of sameness, a smell begins to cut through the cold air. Smoke, mutton fat, and wood. Civilization, or at least its weary cousin. Up ahead, a small station rises from the horizon. Low walls, a stable, and the faint glow of firelight. You slow your horse, dismount, and for the first time in days, feel something close to relief. This is a yam relay post, but it's more than that. It's a halfway world, a crossroads between exhaustion and endurance. It's part tavern, part survival hut, and part rumor factory. Inside, the warmth hits you first, thick and smoky, the kind that clings to your clothes and seeps into your bones. There's a low fire burning in the center pit, and 3 men sit around it, half asleep, their faces illuminated by the red glow. One of them raises a hand lazily in greeting. Nobody speaks for a while. Words are currency here, and everyone's broke. You find a place near the fire and start to thaw. The attendant, a woman with a voice like gravel and eyes that could read weather, hands you a bowl. Steam curls from it. Arag again, of course, but this one's warmer, thicker, more forgiving. You take a sip. Still sour. Still suspicious. But now it tastes like comfort rather than punishment. The woman chuckles softly, as if reading your expression. First time? She asks in Mongolian, but somehow you understand. You nod. She laughs again, a sound like cracked leather, and goes back to stirring a pot that smells faintly of onions and horse. You realize this is the Mongol version of a rest stop diner at 3 a.m. Only the menu hasn't changed in centuries. There's stew, milk, and occasionally something resembling bread. But it's not the food that keeps this place alive. It's the stories. Riders drift in and out, exchanging more than just horses. They trade news, fragments of empire carried in dusty pockets. A rebellion brewing in the west, one murmurs. A caravan attacked near the Yellow River, says another. Someone saw a falcon wearing a gold band. Imperial messenger, maybe. Or maybe the falcon just liked jewelry. You listen quietly, realizing this was how the Mongols stayed informed long before printing presses or telegraphs. The Yam wasn't just a postal network. It was an informal web of gossip, intelligence, and survival tips. Every rider was both messenger and reporter, adding their own threads to the empire's tapestry. The station master, an older man with hands like dry bark, sits down beside you. He tells you that there are thousands of stations like this one, stretching all the way from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. Some are grand, built near cities with stables for hundreds of horses. Others, like this, are barely more than mud huts clinging to the steppe. But together, they form the veins of the empire. He pauses to sip his drink and adds, "The Khan himself could ride from one end of the world to the other and never sleep in the open. The road feeds him, warms him, carries his words. It is his shadow. It's a poetic thought, and you let it hang in the air a moment." A curious fact, the couriers carried pesa, small metal tablets engraved with the Khan's authority. These served as passports, proof of their right to demand fresh horses, food, or shelter. With one of those, you could ride through entire kingdoms untouched. Without one, you might not last the night. Some historians still debate how standardized these passes were, whether they were tightly controlled or loosely interpreted by whoever happened to be holding them. As the night deepens, laughter fills the room. Someone starts telling a story about a courier who accidentally swapped satchels with a monk. The monk's bag was full of scriptures. The courier's contained orders for a siege. The monk was halfway across the desert before anyone noticed. He probably prayed the right city would surrender. Someone jokes, and the room erupts in tired giggles. There's something magical about this small gathering. Outside, the empire is vast, merciless, and cold. But in here, there's soup, warmth, and the quiet hum of shared exhaustion. Every face carries the same story. Miles ridden, storms survived, messages delivered. You lean back against the wall, feeling the rough wood against your shoulders. The fire pops, sending sparks into the smoky air. A horse neighs outside. Someone snores softly. For a moment, it feels timeless, like this could be any century. And then, through the haze, the woman by the fire speaks again. When the riders stop, she says softly, "The world stops with them." You look at her, puzzled. She smiles faintly, stirring her pot. The Khan knows that. That's why the yam never sleeps. The empire must keep moving, even when no one else can. Her words settle into the silence, heavy and true. You think about the strange beauty of that idea. An empire held together not by walls or weapons, but by motion. The riders, the horses, the stations, all parts of a living network that never stands still. Outside, the wind picks up again, moaning through the grass. You pull your cloak tighter and close your eyes for just a moment. The fire hums quietly beside you. You imagine the next rider arriving soon, shaking off snow, stamping their boots, muttering a greeting. The relay will continue long after you've gone. As you drift in that half-sleep between wakefulness and dream, you wonder, did any of them ever think about the letters they carried? Did they imagine the faces on the other end, waiting for news that could change their lives? Or did they learn to see it all as motion, just the endless exchange of messages in a world too large to hold still? The fire cracks softly, answering nothing. When you wake, dawn has returned. Pale light spills through the doorway, revealing horses already saddled and waiting. The station master nods to you, and you rise, joints stiff, but heart strangely calm. You mount your next horse, the chill biting your cheeks, the horizon calling again. Behind you, smoke curls lazily into the sky, the last whisper of warmth before the next stretch of silence. You glance back once, at the small hut fading into the distance. It looks like nothing, a speck in an endless field, but you know now it's everything. The hidden heartbeat of an empire that refused to sleep. You nudge your horse forward, and once again, the steppe begins to move. By now, the rhythm of the yam feels almost natural to you, like breathing or dreaming with your eyes open. You ride, you rest, you listen, you keep going. But somewhere along the route, the tone begins to shift. The landscape looks the same: grass, sky, the occasional flash of a bird, but the air feels heavier. The letters you carry now don't feel like mere ink on parchment. They feel alive, pulsing, as if they know their own importance. This is the Empire's nervous system, after all, the arteries through which Genghis Khan's will travels. But not every message is what it seems. Not every courier rides for truth. You stop at a larger station this time. Almost a fortress, really. Tall wooden walls, guards at the gate, and a row of tethered horses that look like they could run to the horizon and back without blinking. Inside, the usual warmth of the hearth is there, but it feels different. The laughter is thinner, the conversation shorter. You notice eyes darting toward you, then away again. Here, the yam is more than a postal service. It's a spy network, and you, weary and cold, have just ridden into its heart. A young man by the fire gestures you over. He looks like every other courier you've met. Dusty, polite, bone-tired. But when he speaks, his voice has that tone of someone who knows too much. He asks where you've come from, how long you've been riding, what you've seen. It's casual, but calculated. You answer simply, offering nothing extra. He nods once, smiles thinly, and goes back to his drink. You realize something then. Out here, words travel faster than horses. A rumor can outrun a gallop. A lie can cross the continent before truth has even tightened its saddle strap. One of the station guards walks past, carrying a sealed pouch stamped not with the Khan's crest, but with the mark of a noble. You've seen this before. Personal letters, orders, sometimes even bribes. Historians still argue over how much of the yam's traffic was official and how much was less so. Private messages, secret alliances, smuggled intelligence, all riding the same trails as imperial decrees. You can almost hear the whispers rising between the hoofbeats. Who's loyal to whom? Who's plotting rebellion? Who's pretending not to know? Genghis Khan himself understood this better than anyone. That's why he made the yam not just a means of communication, but a weapon of control. The couriers didn't just deliver letters, they delivered surveillance. Every station master kept logs of who came, when they arrived, what they carried, and how long they stayed. In an empire spanning oceans and mountains, this was how he kept watch. You take a seat by the fire and warm your hands. The young man from earlier is still there, quietly sharpening a knife. The sound of metal on stone scrapes through the silence like a reminder. Trust is a luxury. A lesser-known fact drifts into your mind, something you might have overheard back at another post. The yam riders sometimes carried false letters, decoys meant to confuse spies or test loyalty. Imagine that, galloping through snow and wind, risking your life for a document that's pure fiction. Some historians even suspect that the Mongols used these to leak misinformation across enemy borders, centuries before anyone coined the term psychological warfare. You pull your cloak tighter, as if the chill might hide your thoughts. Outside, snow begins to fall in thin, slanted sheets. The horses shift in their stalls, stamping nervously. The station master enters, glancing toward the riders by the fire. The route west is closed, he says, flooding near the Orkhon River. You'll take the northern path instead. You nod, but you notice the young man smirk faintly. The Orkhon isn't flooded. It hasn't been for weeks. So why the change? Why the lie? You want to ask, but in the yam, questions are dangerous things. You mount your horse before dawn. the snow crunching beneath its hooves. The cold is sharper now, like the air itself doesn't trust you. You follow the new route, but your mind keeps turning. How many of the letters you've carried were lies? How many were traps dressed as truths? The sun rises weakly, a pale coin behind the clouds. You ride through silence, so vast it feels like it could swallow you whole. Out here, surrounded by nothing but wind and memory, you realize something unsettling. Empires don't collapse because of distance. They collapse because of miscommunication. And yet, even here, the system works. You stop at another post, and before you even dismount, a fresh horse is brought forward. A hand reaches out, takes the letter, passes another one back. No words exchanged. The machine hums on, unstoppable. The next station is smaller, lonelier, just a single hut beside a frozen stream. Inside, an old man tends to the fire. He looks up as you enter, studying you with eyes that seem to see straight through the centuries. "You carry messages," he says, his voice rasping like dry paper. "Do you ever wonder what they say?" You pause, unsure whether to answer. "No," you finally reply. He smiles faintly, stirring the coals. "Good. The curious riders don't last long." He's not threatening you, not exactly. It's more like he's stating a law of nature. Curiosity, like stillness, has no place in motion. You sit in silence for a while, listening to the fire crackle. Then he speaks again. "Some letters," he says softly, "change hands so many times that no one remembers who sent them. But they still move, still ride, still matter." You think about that long after you've left. About messages that outlive their meaning, letters carrying secrets no one remembers. About how the yam, in all its brilliance, might also have been a labyrinth of confusion, its own mythology galloping alongside the truth. As night falls again, the stars appear faint behind thin clouds. The wind hums like a low instrument, ancient and patient. You can almost hear the whispers of those lost messages, unopened orders, unreceived goodbyes, unread lies, still traveling somewhere in the dark. Maybe the riders knew that all along. Maybe they understood that in the end, it wasn't about who read the message. It was about the act of carrying it, the faith that movement itself meant meaning. You pull your cloak close and press on. Ahead, a single light flickers on the horizon. Another station, another exchange, another secret passed from one anonymous hand to the next. And though the world is vast and silent, you can feel it, the faint hum of an empire speaking to itself across the void, sentence by sentence, heartbeat by heartbeat. The road ahead is emptier now. The yam stations grow farther apart, the horses thinner, the fires weaker. The steppe has reclaimed what once belonged to it. The silence, the distance, the endless sway of grass. You ride slower, not because you're tired, but because there's less urgency in the air. The messages you carry don't feel heavy anymore. Maybe they've stopped mattering, or maybe the empire they served has simply grown too quiet to listen. It's the late 14th century now. The Mongol Empire, that once mighty storm of speed and precision, has begun to fade. The grand relay routes still exist in parts, some used by merchants, some by local khans, but the golden network that once connected continents is fraying, thread by thread. The yam had always depended on discipline, and discipline had depended on unity. Now, there are too many khans, too many rival courts, too many official seals claiming authority. When one letter can carry 5 contradictory orders, even the fastest horse starts to lose interest. You pass through what used to be a bustling station, just a skeleton of mud walls now, half collapsed and scattered with old iron bits. A broken saddle, a rusted stirrup, the faint smell of smoke that never fully leaves wood. The wind whistles through the ruins, and you can almost hear the ghosts of riders long gone, their laughter fading into the hum of grass. You dismount and walk slowly among the remnants. There's an old wooden post still standing, carved faintly with Mongol script. You trace your fingers over the grooves, wondering what it once said. A message of order? A warning? A farewell? No one knows. Historians still debate exactly how and when the yam fell apart. Some say it was economic collapse. Maintaining tens of thousands of horses and stations was unsustainable without constant conquest. Others blame plague, war, or simple neglect. Maybe it was all of them. Maybe even the fastest system in the world can't outrun time. You sit down beside the post, watching the wind ripple through the grass. The quiet is almost too complete. You start to notice small details. The distant bark of a fox, the sigh of the wind through a cracked window frame, the faint jingling of your horse's reins. The steppe has gone back to being what it always was, indifferent. Still, the legacy of the yam lingers. Long after the Mongol Empire broke apart, its postal system inspired others. The couriers of the Yuan dynasty, the mounted relays of Persia, even the early European mail routes. The idea that distance could be conquered, that information could move faster than armies. That was the Mongols' true empire. You imagine Genghis Khan looking out over this same horizon centuries ago, dreaming of a world connected by speed and loyalty. He couldn't have known that one day his riders would vanish, their stations would crumble, and their trails would become forgotten scars across the steppe. But in some strange way, he succeeded. Every message you've ever sent, every ping, every post, every delivery van running late, is a descendant of this very system. You stand and take one last look at the empty station. The light is changing again, the sun slipping low, staining everything gold. The horse beside you stamps softly, impatient to move. You pat its neck and smile. "All right," you whisper. "Let's finish the route." You ride without hurry now, following a path that no longer exists on any map. You know where you're going, even if the world doesn't. The steppe rolls endlessly beneath you, familiar and infinite. Somewhere, a bird takes off, wings slicing the air in perfect rhythm with your horse's stride. You think about all the messages that once crossed these plains, the orders, the secrets, the confessions, and how they all shared one fragile hope, that someone would be there to read them. You remember the old man by the fire, his words still echoing in your mind. Some letters change hands so many times that no one remembers who sent them. You wonder if maybe that's what memory itself is. Messages passed down so many times that their cinders blur into myth. The wind picks up, tugging at your cloak. The horizon glows faintly pink, then deepens into the dark blue of evening. You can almost hear hooves in the distance, hundreds of them, carrying words across the centuries. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's history refusing to stay quiet. You reach the crest of a hill and stop. Below you, the grass ripples like water, endless and soft. Once, this view would have been dotted with stations, riders, smoke. Now there's only the sky and the faint trace of what used to be a road. A ghost path stretching east to west, carved not by wheels, but by purpose. You breathe deeply, the air sharp and cold. It feels cleaner here, like the past has exhaled and finally rested. You realize that for the first time in this journey, you don't feel like a courier anymore. You feel like the message itself, something carried through time, changed by every hand, but still moving forward. You turn your horse toward the horizon. Behind you, the last light fades. Ahead, there's only the whisper of grass and the long, gentle hum of the earth remembering what once was. And then, for the first time, the hooves fall silent. The world grows still now. The empire has quieted, the horses have gone to rest, and the stations, those little pockets of warmth and purpose, have sunk softly back into the soil. The fires have burned out, the letters have long since turned to dust, but their stories linger like the faint afterglow of sunset. You're still there, in that vast openness, surrounded by a horizon that has no edges. The wind moves gently through the grass, brushing against your sleeves, cool and slow. You breathe in deeply. The air smells of earth and distance. Somewhere far away, a single bird calls, then fades into silence. You feel your shoulders drop. Your hands loosen on the reins. The rhythm that carried you across the steppe, the hooves, the heartbeat, the constant motion, begins to slow, like a song easing to its final note. You look up at the sky. The stars are appearing again, patient and familiar. They were here long before the couriers, long before the empire, and they'll be here long after. The world has always been connected, not by roads or riders, but by time, by memory, by breath. You let that thought settle. You let the stillness unfold. Your eyes grow heavy, your breathing steadies. The steppe hums its soft lullaby around you. Low wind, distant echoes, the quiet rhythm of a world at peace with itself. And as you drift closer to sleep, the last sound you hear isn't hooves or wind or voices. It's the silence between them, the sound of history resting.